Go to the next item, and this is on page 75 of your agenda. This is the East-West Link Auckland Council submission. I'll ask John Dogood to introduce it, and then I'll ask the Deputy Chair of the Committee, Councillor Denise Lee, to introduce it from a political vantage point.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, councillors and members of the IMSB. So, as you're aware, NZTA have been working on this project for quite some time. They've presented to the governing body on a number of occasions, and we have a staff project team going across Panuku, Auckland Transport, the wider organisation to analyse this project and prepare a submission to lodge in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we're getting to the sharp end of things in terms of this phase, the submissions phase. The applications for the notice of requirement and numerous resource consents were publicly notified about a fortnight ago. There is a 4-week submission period. I'll talk to that a bit more in a second. So staff have been working with the political reference group appointed by the Planning Committee last November. We have local board representatives on that working group as well as members of the Planning Committee. I think we've had 2 or 3 workshops and staff have received some direction from the reference group in terms of framing up the council submission. So on the screen now we just have those timelines that I spoke to. So 22nd of February was when the applications were notified. Both the notice of requirement and the various resource consents. Submissions were called for. Submissions closed 22nd of March. Clearly council is looking to make a submission, and a number of other parties will clearly make submissions. May to July is when council will be preparing its evidence or its case to present to the Board of Inquiry. The government, the ministers have appointed members to a board to hear submissions and make a decision on these applications. And we expect that there may well be mediation conferencing prior to the hearing commencing. So it may well be that the Board of Inquiry directs certain submitters and the Council, NZTA, to enter into mediation or expert conferencing where specialists in noise or ecology might get together to try and narrow the issues before a hearing. That may or may not happen, but we think something this complex could well go down the path of mediation and conferencing. So I guess that leads into the agenda report, where one of the things that we're seeking is that the political reference group that was established in November has a role beyond the submission period, but right through the process, so that if there is mediation or conferencing, then we have a group of elected members that we can seek direction from. So the slides now, in terms of the ongoing delegations, we will need to move swiftly, as I've mentioned, establish the council's position. This is post the lodgement of the submission, so we are seeking in the report that there is an extension of the political reference group beyond or throughout the entire process. Also, in terms of finalising the council's submission in the next couple of weeks, we feel that there is a need for a majority vote to be established in the situation where we might not have all members of the Planning Committee who are on the reference group in agreement. We seek in the report that there's a majority of 3 political reference group members from the Planning Committee can finalise the council submission. At this point in time, local boards are, the 2 main local boards affected by the applications are still considering whether they include their views in the council submission or not, but we think that they are quite interested in that, the ability to include a local board section within the council submission. So at this point in time, the other thing to speak to is there was a resolution of the committee in November to seek that the Environmental Protection Authority, who are assisting the Board of Inquiry, allow for a 2-month submission period, not a 1-month submission period. The agenda report does include some advice from our lawyers that the Environmental Protection Agency and the Board of Inquiry are unable to extend the submission period. The board can accept or can potentially accept late submissions. So there is that option available for the Board of Inquiry, and perhaps that's something that the Council might consider supporting. Once the submission period closes, if there are late submissions that come in, the Board can potentially accept those late submissions, but the Board and the EPA, Environmental Protection Authority, can't extend the submission period. So we're just seeking that you note that advice. Great. So the next part of our presentation is Matt, who's our principal planner, who's been coordinating a lot of this work across numerous council departments and the CCOs, to really just highlight in the space of 5 minutes the key issues that staff and consultants have identified to date. So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Go for it, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Transport to the
So yeah, sorry, is that all? Yeah. Hello everyone. So Matt Gouge, the project manager for Council's submission on the East-West Link project, and a planner within the Plans and Places team. So as you'll see through the report that we've sent through, it's a long alignment. So we're looking at about an 8 kilometre long alignment. It's a $1.5 to $1.8 billion roading project. This will be no news for some of you who have been involved in the political reference group that we've set up for this project. Through the expert assessment, which is ongoing and coming in at the moment, we have identified some key areas of interest along this alignment. So it extends from Nelson Street here on the west, along the northern foreshore of the Mangere Inlet, through up past Mutukaroa or Hamlin's Hill and onto Tip Top Corner, where it joins State Highway 1 and comes down as far as Princes Street here. So in terms of the key areas that we've identified, so point 12 on the committee report there is the area of Nelson Street, and looking particularly at the development potential and placemaking potential of this area, which has been identified through a number of community groups as well as a key feature or a key opportunity for this project. Panuku are very interested in this part of the project, particularly around the development of the wharf, the port area there. And so we're looking at things such as better connections through to the port area to enable that future development, cycling and walking connectivity and enabling that both along the foreshore and towards Onehunga Township, and also more cosmetic features such as removal of the transmission lines there to open up that landscape and to provide a more higher quality open space there. So that's some of the comments that are coming through. In terms of the foreshore area, which is here, so the key features along here are the stormwater and leachate collection ponds, which also double as landscape features and parks and open space. So these areas here are artificially made headlands intended to replicate the natural coastline of that area, which has undergone significant reclamation since the mid-1800s. So there is an opportunity there. However, there is also a operational cost associated with these, and our stormwater and closed landfill teams are looking at those in terms of any additional cost that may be occurred to the council in the future, and we're working closely with the NZTA on that. The third key issue is around Anns Creek, which is an area of significant ecological quality. So you've got there all the crosses, and the little dots represent marine and terrestrial SEAs, or significant ecological areas, so bird wading habitats and also areas of high quality vegetation or indigenous vegetation. And there's also what they call ONFs, so outstanding natural features, which are larval rock formations. So they've come down from a number of the volcanoes, most notably One Tree Hill. And so the confluence of those two has resulted in some pretty unique vegetation in that area. And so our ecologists are very keen to protect that site because of that uniqueness. And indeed, it's gone through, I believe, about 20 years of litigation just in that area, which has recently finished with regards to these features. So the council experts are very sensitive in protecting what we've got and enhancing what we've got there. So that leads off to point 14 there. That's finishing point 14. In terms of the point 15 there, another key point which I just raise the council's attention to is the notion of community groups. So in this area, the Onehunga Enhancement Society and the Onehunga Business Association are proposing an alternative to the NZTA proposal, which is summarised in this image here. So some of you may be familiar with Taumanu Reserve, which was recently created there to the north. The proposal is to actually extend that area of reclamation all the way down to the port and then along the northern foreshore of the inlet, and in order to create a more livable, walkable space and for those amenity qualities. There's also additional bridges which have been proposed by the community group to effectively move that traffic away from the Nielsen Street interchange area, this area here, and so in an attempt to make it a more attractive place for recreation, enhance the community's ability to access the water and so forth, all of which are key areas of focus for our experts currently, albeit by other means. So it's needless to say, with some of these matters proposed, there are concerns from ecologists, our experts in coastal morphology and the way that the water moves around that area, sedimentation and the like. So we are looking closely at that. Our parks and open space people see merit in terms of that. However, there are ecological concerns and or potentially transport concerns as well. So we're keeping a watching brief on that, and work is ongoing. So those are the key sort of aspects, and from this moment I'll hand back to John.
Right, maybe just one final comment in conclusion. We have engaged with mana whenua over the last few months. NZTA have engaged with mana whenua over a much longer period of time. Initially we were engaging with primarily operational or technical representatives from mana whenua, and we had a wide range of issues that individuals from the different iwi hapu raised, but not necessarily mandated by the iwi as a whole. So we had a governance hui last week to try and get more of a governance mandate for the feedback that we'd received. And really what it boils down to is probably two main issues. First, that the council needs to be aware of. First of all, there is a treaty settlement claim over the Manukau Harbour that is still sitting there with the Office of Treaty Settlement, so that is absolutely critical to mana whenua at a governance level. What that means in practical terms, we're still working through in terms of what we might say in our submission or recommend to the political reference group on that front, but that is an absolute fundamental from mana whenua point of view. The second one is that there seem to be some cultural effects or adverse effects that NZTA has yet to properly address. But to actually get that mandated as a single perspective is quite challenging. So, but there are still outstanding cultural issues around the Anns Creek area and the Haupua crater, and even potentially around the foreshore issue that are still outstanding from mana whenua point of view. Some mana whenua entities are looking to make a submission, but that's yet to be confirmed. So that's what we can say on that front.
Thank you, John. That's concluding your presentation. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think it's a considering the journey we've been on in this, it would be good to have a political viewpoint, and I'll allow Councillor Denise Lee, who's been leading this on behalf of Council, to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Darby. It certainly is a big project with some big issues and challenging, but there's also, as you outlined, John, some opportunities as well. I'd like to thank the Working Party for your work so far. I don't think we've really reached the peak in any regard, and that Working Party comprises myself, Chair Darby, Councillors Newman, Lee and Quacks, and we also have two representatives from the Maungakiekie Tamaki Local Board, Chair Josephine Bartley, Bernie Diver and Lydia from the Mangere Otahu Board. So we've put in hours already, but would pale in comparison to what the staff have done. Matt, you must be a middle child, a peacemaker, a mediator, because what you've done in terms of bringing together members of the council family has been nothing short of phenomenal. It's, as I said, a very, very big project and cuts across just about every arm of our council family, as you could imagine. The report that we've got in front of us, colleagues, obviously does not go into detail, because you would be here for the next 3 days if you were to listen to all that we have in our working party sessions so far. So what you've got here is a really helpful brief outline in paragraph 6 on the issues and the opportunities. They're the key issues that we're identifying. That's not all the issues, but definitely the key issues. We're needing support from you for the recommendations around delegations from here. So like the smaller unitary plan group that are traversing the appeals journey, we're going to need something like that in regards to this east-west. We'll have to be nimble and responsive. And again, I'd like to thank those members of the working party that are prepared to do that. Signing up for 3 members, essentially as a quorum from this planning committee, is a good move. We all can't be there all the time, but there are those of us that have shown some serious commitment to this point, and I think it's a good practical move to have 3 members from this committee as a quorum going forward. I'd like to make a quick comment on the thank you for your work on attempting for an 8-week submission period. We obviously did get that legal advice. It was not possible. Chair, I would like to move, but also reserve space for a comment around the extension of submissions, as John's made. But my last comment before I come to the question would be the delicate balance for us, folks, between technical response and a placemaking response. After all, people live all along, well, specifically the east and the west part of this project, and there's going to be some serious impact to those who live here, and it is our duty to ensure that residents are factored into our decision making, plain and simple. I'd like to think that paragraph 12 summarises quite well some of those it is granted in relation to the Onehunga community, but you've got the wording a strong sense. We need to reinforce a strong sense of local identity, improving amenity and improving connections. So they're good words, and words that we need to pay very close attention to as we listen to community interests, and then agree, as we have, that the project in fact does need to happen. So with that, Chair, I'd like to move. I believe Councillor Newman is the second.
Yep, we do. We have a move in the Deputy Chair and Councillor Newman. It's on the table. Thank you, Councillor Denise Lee, for that introduction and background, and echo the sentiment about the phenomenal contribution of our team and particularly our local boards that have participated in this as well. I have a question or comment from Councillor Clow, then Councillor Mike Lee.
Yeah, two questions. Point 15 about the Onehunga Enhancement Society, and that the $300 million bill that could end up costing. Where would that lie if that was to find favour? Would that be part of the government contribution, or would we have to find $300 million?